The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. He's Willie Dills Gregory, and she's Jocelyn Moffat, and we're going to talk a lot of Hearthstone today. We're going to talk about a lot of talk about Hearthstone today, actually. If I'm going to preface this episode as truthfully as I can, it's going to be, there's been a lot of chat out of Team 5, and we're going to chat about said chat.
Yes, pretty much. But, you know, like, one thing I'll say about this episode going in, I'm really excited about this one because it very much feels like all the talk that's been happening lately is being listened to. And there's now, literally, we have a date, a response time. They're going to talk back to us. Yes, it's so good.
That's really cool. This was the live stream was announced like a few hours before we recorded, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I know. That's why I think we had a little bit of a scramble and a change in the plans of the show, because some of the stuff that I was thinking, I'll talk about this in like 2 weeks, it'll be fine. Now I'm like, well, it might not even matter in 2 weeks. Because who knows what they're going to tell us, you know?
Yeah. So you were, Dills, you usually head up the strategy talk, and most of the time it's just, hey, this is the deck we're going to chat about this week. Sometimes we go deeper than that, but that's typically what your general episode of TAC is about. But today you're just, like yesterday, you're like, all right, we're going to do the new Control Warrior. Control Warrior's back. It's cool. People are hitting rank 1 legend with it. Let's do that. And then, that was announced, and you're like, hey, guys, actually, I have some ideas which are probably going to be possibly irrelevant. Let's maybe talk about it now.
Yeah, we'll table the Control Warrior discussion. For anybody who really wants the list, if anybody really wants the list, look up VLPS's Dirty Rat list. That's basically what people are using, and not an easy deck. That's why we needed to talk about it. But you know what? It'll still be there next week, right? So this week we have some urgent stuff.
I'm just happy that Control Warrior is back. And
actually,
I find that
it's not only Pirate Warrior or mid-range Dragon Warrior aggro stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no.
Who would have thunk it, a warrior without patches in 2017?
I've literally, as I've been playing this deck, had people been like, wow, like,
what is going on here? Dirty Rat.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. It's the funny thing, though, is like so I was a little bit excited to talk about that deck, and then both of you guys were like, struggling with it, and I was like, oh no, we're all going to talk about this deck, and you guys will be like, this deck sucks.
I don't.
So now maybe we'll have like another week where we can like do a little more testing with it, and then we'll come back a little more positive about it. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. My quick thoughts, like, I wasn't that bad with the deck. I think I ended up at like a 60% win rate, which is fine. Yeah. But my problem was like, and I guess it's probably more of a ladder problem than a problem with this specific deck, but it's like I had this really awesome like 15-minute long game against this really innovative lock and load hunter. Didn't even have Yogg because it went to fatigue, so I saw everything, so it wasn't even Yogg and load. And it was awesome. It was like I exhausted all his resources. It was this 15-minute long game. It was great. I won. I got my star. I went in and I had literally a 1.5-minute game against a shaman that just wrecked my face. And I was like, lost my star again.
Yeah, you're like, that star I worked so hard to get. Yeah. What a precious star that was, you know? It was a shining, bright star. Gone. Just like that.
I was so sad. So I was just like, this is why I feel like I'm wasting my time if I don't, like, regardless of the win rate of the warrior, if I'm not aggro shamaning, I feel like I'm just doing it wrong right now, and that just feels really bad.
You might be making your stars a little more precious than they should be, you know? Like,
that was a 15-minute star.
Okay, sure. But you had that fun experience. That can't be taken away from you. That is a star that is still in your heart, Jocelyn. So
it is.
Your stars in your heart, not on your ladder.
Yes.
I definitely get where you're coming from, Josh, because I had a very similar thing. I had I played against a dragon priest, and I played against a Reno mage, and it went to like fatigue like 12 or something insane. It went on forever, and then I lost my next game, and I was just like, dude, man, that
see,
star.
You learned something from those games, and that's the thing. Like, the star is not the only reward, right? I'm the experience is there.
I'm not saying that I'm flawed in my emotional reaction to that, but I'm just saying that I 100% agree with. I had the same reaction that Jocelyn had. Like, I get it. I had a great time in that versus Reno Mage matchup. It was long. It was ridiculous. It felt like an intense game of chess against my buddy when we're both just sitting there like our brains about to catch fire, trying to figure out how to win this thing. And by the end of this 20-minute Hearthstone session, I stood victorious. And then I lost to a hunter because my draw was terrible next game, and it was just like, okay.
This is a byproduct of the star system, because they literally show you like bing, and it like pops and it's great, and then they're like, nope, they were taking that one back.
Yeah.
And so that, imagine if it showed you like your record was now 2-0, and then your record was just 2-1. Like, it didn't take away one of your wins, right?
Yeah.
Your win is still there. But when it's a win is a star and then a loss is minus a star, you literally see your win go away.
Right,
so,
and that's
you
why
guys are correct. It's a byproduct of how they present you the ladder and everything. That's But I'm trying to give you guys another perspective. Yeah.
That it's like shooting themselves in the foot with their amazing aesthetics and animations and stuff like that. Because then when you lose, it's just like, and when you win, it's like,
when you win, there's fireworks and it's all great. And when you lose, you blow up into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
Feel bad. Stars go away.
That said, the whole like gain one on a loss, lose one on a loss. I mean, that we constantly compare Hearthstone to the other games within Blizzard's roster. As kind of points of comparison, and it really happens everywhere else too. It does. In Heroes, your circle, you're leveling up your disco ball, or you're down leveling it when you lose. The same thing's happening in Overwatch with your points. I mean, it's really, everyone has that. There's just something about the star, because like you said, Jocelyn, like at the end of a really long control matchup where you win, you're just like, no, this star is more special than the others. I want to explain this star to my friends. Be like, yeah, I'm rank whatever 2 stars, but listen, those 2 stars, they're more special than your 2 stars. And it just doesn't work out. But
well, when you earn experience, you earn more experience for like your 20-minute games, right? When you're still not level 60 with your class. So you see like that the bar went up more, and when you have a little, really quick game, the bar barely moves at all, right? So like maybe there's something there. I don't know. This is all part of our discussion for later, honestly.
Yeah,
but
we're cannibalizing a little bit.
But you guys are right. You guys are right. The 1-to-1, when the game doesn't feel 1-to-1, definitely has a feeling that it stirs inside of people.
Yeah. And this was just top of tack therapy session. By no means am I
feel better. I'm sure.
By no means am I basing how I would like to see like rank improvements off of what it felt to lose with a bad hand as control warrior after a 20-minute game. That's
we should base everything on how we feel at that given moment.
Clearly, yes. Knee-jerk reactions is how I want things that I love to be improved upon. Anyways,
I'll tell the story about how I avoided my knee-jerk reactions in our later segment that we'll talk about, because I think that was an important part of me putting this together.
It does. It does need to be shared, possibly streamed. Depending on your own personal level of comfort. But before we move in and really get into the meat of today's show, talk about news, and then move into what replace strategy this week, wanted to thank our patrons again for supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. But also to remind our current patrons, go and check your payment method. Make sure it is working, because we have an alarmingly large amount of supporters whose payment methods just aren't working anymore for whatever reason. I hope that it's just that your card happened to expire on January and not that December was full of rampant card fraud for many of our patrons. But nonetheless, if you want to continue supporting this show and anyone else you support on Patreon, go to Patreon and check your payment method, because we've noticed a large amount of declined patron pledges. So go give that a look.
Yeah, not people pulling the pledges, just that the payments didn't.
Yeah, that they're still trying to support us. But
people probably don't even know that it's not working. That's what I've found through Patreon, is that a lot of times people have no idea that the payment was getting declined. Mm-hmm. And so it's not on anybody's issue, except like Patreon probably needs a better way to let people know, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do it for them.
Absolutely. So anyways, go take a look at that, and again, we really appreciate the support. Now let's move into this week's Hearthstone news. For some reason it's not playing. Hooray for new hard drives. What's going on here? I guess bumpers just aren't working today. Hooray, Windows 10. Good news, everyone! I really don't know what's happening. But I've got a pinwheel like crazy, and hopefully my computer doesn't crash. So
that's fun. I was gonna say, it's been so long since Dills and I have actually heard the bumpers in line with the show. I'm just like, wait,
I just assume they're happening.
Yeah. I was like, what does that sound like again? I'm like, I can't even mimic it right now.
Yeah, and considering it's still spinning, guys, if randomly, like an hour into this episode, a bumper plays, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That'd be hilarious.
But hey, this week's Hearthstone News is brought to you by our sponsor, HelloFresh.com. We have a new code. Same deal, same website, same office, food delivery service to your doorstep. But our code is now TAC35. That's TAC35. If you use that code when you subscribe over at HelloFresh.com, you'll get $35 off of your first week of deliveries. We have all used HelloFresh here at Angry Chicken, and I believe we have talked multiple times now about how, we're all rather challenged at cooking well. And HelloFresh makes it super easy, and it's not terrible for you. I'm not just going to McDonald's for the third night this week. And I appreciate HelloFresh's role in my life of keeping me alive and well fed. So we would recommend you all go check it out. HelloFresh.com. Use the code TAC35 when you subscribe and save $35 on your first week. Check them out.
Would you say same TAC code, same TAC channel, same TAC time?
Same TAC food. Same TAC food.
TAC 35.
Except it's not the same food because they make new recipes every week.
No, it'll be new food each time. Yeah.
Check it
Different
out.
TAC food. Same TAC code.
Well, as we alluded to at the top of the show, if you haven't been paying attention to Reddit, to the forums, to Twitter, or even just the official Hearthstone website, Ben Brode has been exceptionally chatty since we last got together and had an episode of The Angry Chicken. And this kind of all started with him talking on the official forums and kind of reinforcing what Team 5's goals are for Standard and where they stand on nerfing Classic and Basic cards, rotating things into Wild, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to be doing a lot of direct quoting on today's episode. So he went in because this was there was a lot of chat on the forums about this subject. He said that, kind of reiterated, we've heard this before, that guys, there are benefits to keeping basic and classic cards in Standard. He invoked returning players again, having an entry point. They'll have cards like Arcane Missiles, for example, that they remember, that they know how they function. He also said, hey, that that is Warcraft flavor. That is very basic Warcraft themes that he thinks, and I honestly agree with, kind of set the stage for what Hearthstone is. Which, even though they removed Heroes of Warcraft, is a Warcraft card game.
True. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's also a lot of preface to this with Brode. It was funny because Brode's first comments that I noticed where it seemed that he was starting to become more chatty was when he said, oh, if I don't respond to something on the forums immediately, it just gets lost in the shuffle and all this stuff. I don't know if you guys saw that one too.
Mm-hmm. I missed that one.
So yeah, he's basically saying, I want to respond to more things. You guys are complaining about how I'm not responding all the time. I want to respond to more things, but if I don't get to it within the first, hour of the post existence, my response ends up being, 3 scroll pages down and nobody even sees it. So a lot of times we're not responding when we want to. Things like that.
Well, and I think that's one of those things that you're just like, well, yeah, obviously.
Sure,
But,
that's how forums work.
Yeah, exactly. But it's it's the kind of thing where it's just like, well, that's why the whole like your response is getting buried, and then some members of the community getting the information, some members not, and then of course there's all those arguments in the community say, no, this is the way it's working, no, this is the way it's working, and then everyone digs for the comment and everything else. Like, that causes a lot of strife in the community as well, and a lot of the negativity there, but it's just the way forums work. But what I don't understand is why Brode doesn't make like a weekly thread being like, here's all the stuff, guys, that I was going to talk about.
This is great what he did here, because it was on the official forums, right?
Yes,
so
yeah.
We have, and this has been something, if you've been a follower of World of Warcraft for a long time, blue trackers is a thing that you're very familiar with, right? And there's not a blue tracker in Reddit necessarily, where you go and that you're going to find all the comments from the developers. But when they put it on the official forums, we all find it, right? So this is a great step in the right direction.
There is a badge on Reddit, though, when there's a blue response that pops up.
There is, but it's not. There's not a tool like the same way that you see on.
You can't like get it pulled out.
You like set it up.
But there are tools. They're called Hearthpwn and Hearthhead.
But sometimes they even miss it, right? Like,
they don't really necessarily.
They don't grab everything.
Credit. Those blue trackers essentially pull still from like the official forums, but it's just it's like there's they just need to be using this as their way to talk to us, and this is great. And I like what he's saying, and I appreciate all the things here. Like, people do take breaks from Hearthstone, and when they come back, it is important that they're not screwed, right? So like that's valid. All of this is valid. And I'm already on board. Like, reading this, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm on board. But what else you got for us?
Yeah, and he went on, and he laid that out again. Hey, we want to keep basic and classic. We think there's value to that. We think it helps the new player experience. But then he went on to say that the upside of that has a real downside in working directly against what their goal for standard is. He said, quote, "It needs to feel different each year, and if basic and classic cards are still appearing in large densities year after year, we will not be achieving our goals for standard." So cool. Now, hilariously, if you go and read through the responses to this, a lot of people took this as, "You're admitting it failed. Why are you still doing it? Just get rid of it." To which I say,
but you know what though? There's the same amount of people saying you can't ever get rid of Gadget, Zan Auctioneer, Azure Drake. Like, those are too important to certain deck archetypes, right? So there's like, again, we're at the spot where we can't please everybody.
Right, exactly. And to them I say, well, I would argue that about Reno, and Ben Brode confirmed that Reno is not getting added into the classic or basic set. He is definitely going to be wild only.
In fact, I think essentially confirmed nothing would be added into the basic set as far as now. Like, there's no plans to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't actually, and never say never, but
I think that's fine, at least for this one, because again, like, they had like all of these card sets were already out when they made the decision to make standard. They knew what they were doing with exactly these cards, so I think it's fine.
I think honestly,
we should just wait and see what they give us, and not freak out.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a very good point too. The idea that the basic and classic cards are off limits, I think, is also a bad one, right? And I think that's what a lot of people have just kind of assumed, is that, okay, they made these original 12 nerfs, and now those cards are like, everything else is just off limits from here on out, right? And that is concerning, and that is what he's kind of addressing here, is that we fix one problem and we create another one, right? Like, we fix this one problem of returning players, but what we do is, is that worth making the game feel too similar year after year to players who play the game year after year, right? Like, should we be concerning ourselves with those players more than players who step away for a while and then may or may not come back? And I personally believe you should focus more on the players who play your game consistently, more, like a little bit more, like weigh that just a little heavier, and then still considering these other people, because you definitely are going to need growth to account for the inevitable fall off that is always going to happen. There will be a certain amount of players who will eventually just fall off. You need to be either,
bringing new players back, or
getting new players, or getting some players to consider coming back. That has to be a consideration as well. So what you need to do is figure out what that weight kind of is, and then move forward with that in mind, right? Not just like, this can never change because of returning players. Because then you're really just throwing out, players like us, right? Who consistently play your game and spend money on your game year after year. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a juggling act. It's not easy, right? But you can see in the next statement that they're clearly thinking about this.
Yeah, he went on to say that, if things are looking like they are going to be too, quote, samey, which I love, for that next year, we could see more nerfs, or we might rotate some additional classic cards of Wild, and he invokes Old Murk-Eye as an example. So again, there's not a lot new here, but this is a hot topic in the Hearthstone community right now, so I think it's worth readdressing. So, yeah. I agree with a lot of the points you brought up, Dills. I mean, I've been on the show before saying that I would prefer if they just, rotate a classic out and we worked with new cards, but that doesn't mean that I think them going with this route of keeping classic and basic, making tweaks as needed, is inherently bad.
Sure.
It's just, I personally would prefer something different, but this isn't killing the game by any means for me.
No. And I think there's another thing here, which is that when they talk about rotating cards out, they need to more and more as time goes on consider Wild like a real format, because what ends up happening is people just think those cards are just gone forever, right? Like Old Murk-Eye doesn't even exist anymore, and that's another topic that we've tackled on this show many times before. But when you rotate, like the idea that a card can rotate to Wild and then maybe rotate back in, I think is also something that might be healthy at some point. In Magic, you get reprints, after a while, because the card might make a lot of sense again with a new set, but doesn't make sense when a current set, like let's say Charge, right? Mm-hmm. Charge might have made a lot of sense 2 years ago as a card, but then they said themselves that there were some cards that were being added that they were like, we can't have this card. This card can't exist if so the idea that things can get nerfed, but also things can rotate in and out, I think is also kind of nice. And hopefully that's kind of how it ends up feeling, is that when cards rotate to Wild, they're not just dead. They're not like disenchant this card because it's gone forever. They're just like, this card is now in this format. Things may change in the future, I would like to have that kind of feel too, because it does kind of suck when a card, when people were really upset when Dr. Boom I crafted. Oh man, now it's gone.
Yep.
Well, cards could rotate back maybe. There's like all kinds of stuff that I think could be done here that makes people feel not like their collection is temporary and unimportant and just a money sink, right?
Yeah.
And where are we really going here? So
I think a lot of that. Sorry, Jocelyn, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that's true, but I feel like because Blizzard tends towards the easy to understand, hard to master model for all their games, I feel like if they start playing, even though it's a digital card game and you can enable, disable, all the rest of it, I think that would potentially create more confusion than they're looking for. Like I think I said in last episode or the episode before, just the kind of delineation of cards into like adventures and expansions, and then classic, it's very easy for everyone to understand. Like it is, Dr. Boom good in standard, like well GVG is out, so like there's that extra level of like what's in, what's out, what's craftable, what's not craftable. And I understand that, like, we get it, we understand it, it wouldn't be a big deal. But like Dills mentioned, we played this game for years. Like, this is all super easy for us to grasp. So I feel like that might not be something that they do. Just the bringing cards back part from old rotated out things. I know they can kind of mess with classic, but even then I feel like when they're talking about rotating additional classic cards to Wild like they did with Murk-Eye, at least ETC and Murk-Eye were, kind of a set in and of themselves, because they were reward cards. So that was, again, really easy to grab. Okay, we've got these cards are rewards, so now they're out, and that's fine because the reward set went out. But if there's no like set that they belong to, then that's where I think it kind of gets murky.
Yeah, but they're already talking about rotating some cards to to Wild that aren't.
I know, and
part
that's
of
why.
it. So I mean, like, if you're doing that, but you're not doing any of the other things, you're still doing the thing that you're claiming is confusing, right? So
yeah,
it's like
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this is it's.
But as
weird
long as
to
it's
me.
in the game, clearly delineated, like clearly separated, where I can click a button and see, okay, these are the cards that are available in standard, and these are the cards that are not. As long as that's in the game somewhere, I don't think it is that confusing, right? Because the thing that's confusing about when Matt and Garrett, you could probably back me up on this a little bit, but in Magic, there's so many cards.
Mm-hmm.
And when I like try to look up what's legal in standard, I'm, on some random website somewhere that's listed it in like text. And it's very difficult to figure out what card is what and what card does what. And those are my only real resources. Hearthstone has the advantage, right, of a client you log into, and like literally you can go to your collection and separate them out. So
that's true.
I don't think it's as confusing in a game like Hearthstone.
Well, and I guess Magic does reprints, right?
Yes, 100%.
Like
and
straight up reprints.
Straight up reprints, yes. And then like we also see like certain cards, certain characters return with different stats, kind of like how we have 2 Deathwings in Hearthstone. We see kind of both. The point I was going to bring up, Joss, and I think you brought up some good points, but I what I don't like, and I definitely brought up before, is like just arbitrary rules. Like, don't do this for the sake of just because. I don't like just saying, no, we'll never see a card that has previously gone to Wild return to Standard, because I do like what Dills brought up, which is some of those cards might be just awesome in that kind of limited environment of Standard sometime in the future, depending on what the sets look like. And I think you could make it extremely not confusing if you just did a digital version of a reprint. Like, Dr. Boom is a bad example. I don't think we'll ever see Dr. Boom return, but for the sake of argument, let's say they wanted to reintroduce Dr. Boom with no changes, same exact card. I think the best way to do that is just whatever the new set is, there's a chance you'll get Dr. Boom out of it, and maybe he has a different little watermark behind the text to indicate that you got him from that set instead of the other. But if you already had him, cool, you can throw him in your deck again.
You could like convert him to the new set or something like that, right?
So that way.
There's actually some stuff I'll talk about later, and some of my ideas that very much supports like this type of tech being in the game, which is like certain cards are like have tags that aren't just it's from this set, it's from this set, it's from this set. Like there's other tags like essentially on cards, right? So like let's say they did remove Auctioneer, right? And then 3 expansions from now, they were like, yo, Auctioneer makes a lot of sense with this set. We should put Auctioneer back in. Like, if you were a new player, you could have a chance to get Auctioneer out of a pack. But if you were an old player, you could just say, okay, I have 2 Auctioneers in Wild. Just put them back into Standard, right? Yeah. So they just go back in. And now they're considered, like, the new set or whatever. Like, they have the new little icon below them or whatever.
That was the point.
And then they'd rotate out again. And
then whenever they're supposed to rotate, they rotate again.
Yeah, they just go back to Wild. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Like, if confusing, if your big goal is to not have new players have to worry about what is legal and what is not, what is Standard, what is Wild, yada yada yada. If we had reprints, which I don't even think we need to worry about for a little while longer, but if and when they come, because I would at least like the option of that, because I don't like arbitrary rules. Just add them back into the card packs, because then it's not confusing. It doesn't matter to us if we already have them. Cool, we already have the cards. Who cares? I get some extra dust. To new players, if they get them, all right, awesome. They were new with a fresh collection anyway. So it's
well, if you think about how it
them.
works in Magic, right? Like, let's say they do a reprint, I can use my old cardboard copy of it in Standard. Because it's a reprint and it's the same card essentially. Yes. It just has like a different icon, right? Like that's like literally the only difference. But it's just like now this card's allowed again, right? So I can come to a tournament and have like the version from 5 years ago in my deck. It's okay because there's a new version of it now. It's just literally they have like different art and a different icon. So it would be like the same exact thing. And you just wouldn't even notice if you like already had the card. You're like, oh cool, Auctioneer's back. Well, I already have that. Awesome, So I mean, there's like you said, Garrett. Arbitrary rules I think are bad, especially when you have what you have in Hearthstone, which is a digital game that you can do stuff to. So when it doesn't make sense, don't do it, and when it does make sense, do it. But just make sure you explain it to us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Team 5 is really playing with arbitrary rules for the most part. I mean, that's kind of everything Ben Brode talked about here is saying, we'll just do what we think is best for the game based on what's coming down the pipeline. And that's really, at the end of the day, exactly what I want.
Mm-hmm. They seemed very stubborn at the beginning.
Yes.
And they definitely loosened the reins a little bit, which is great.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at now, is like, well, in hindsight, I think they're doing a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. So, then there's also the talk about possibly buffing cards. One of the replies, one of the questions that Ben Brode in the same forum thread was, if are you guys considering, besides nerfs, implementing buffs for underused vanilla cards? And I'm just going to read Ben Brode's quote in its entirety here. He says, given the goal of Standard is to keep the game fresh each year, it's important to keep a lot of the power of the cards in the expansions and not in the basic and classic sets. It's not clear what that balance of power should look like. Is it 10 cards from the basic and classic sets on average? But we're currently skewed so high towards basic and classic cards in decks that we are at high risk for, he brings up sameness again, as the years change in Standard. Buffing basic and classic cards increases that risk. If the goal is to get more cool cards into the meta, just releasing awesome new cards in expansions should make an impact there and still keep Standard fresh.
I mean, I am 100% with him here. The way to keep things fresh is that when the new cards come out, they go into the decks, right? And if we start buffing all the old cards, then what happens is what people complained about with TGT, right? Which is that a bunch of cards came out and we didn't put them in any of the decks because they sucked. And the reason they sucked is because they sucked in comparison to what was already there. And so that's basically the key here is, if okay, Magma Rage is terrible, right? Like, that's fine because you see that Magma Rage is terrible, and then you see why the next card is better, and then you put the next card in, and you don't put that card in. So then when the new set comes out, you see like, oh, this is a card that should be there, not Magma Rager. But if you buff Magma Rager, then you're like, oh, cool, now there's this new Magma Rager deck, and that's weird. And then the new cards don't matter as much. So, yeah, no, this is he's right on the money with this, I think, which is, the new sets become awesome when they start formulating large portions of the major decks that you see. Because right now, if you think about it, Pirate Warrior is like 24 classic and basic cards or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then like a few new cards.
But I don't necessarily think that that's bad, because pirates in classic and basic in and of themselves are terrible. Like, we laughed at Husky when he brought Pirate Warrior, right? Like, pirate decks were not a thing. And so, it's the cards rotating in and out that are going to make Pirate Warrior then come and go in the meta, and I think that that's fine.
I think that's a really good...
It's fine to have like some cards come back, but I think when a deck is, when we're talking like 3 or 4 years down the line of the game being out, and a deck is still like 80% classic and basic cards, then maybe the power level of your classic and basic cards is a little too high, right?
I am with Joss though. I mean, Joss, I think your point kind of was, but we didn't see a lot of those 20 plus cards really used up until now, so it's almost new.
Yeah, which 5 cards unlock the power, right?
Yes, exactly. So then when those 5 cards are gone, then probably pirates will go with it, and then maybe we'll have a year with no pirates, and then we'll get a few more pirate cards, and then everyone will go back to pirates again. And I think that's fine, because I think, although I am getting really sick of patches, I really think that pirates are fun. I love their design and their flavor and all the rest of it. So I'm fine with them coming and going. But I think the problem is they're not coming and going right now. They're just in your face.
I've been playing them in Wild.
They're going to be here for 2 more years because
exactly.
Because of the fact that patches and small time Buccaneer, because it's those 2 cards really. That's all that they needed. Because it's those 2 cards and they just got here. They're here for 2 more years because all the other cards are from the classic set, right? That's the thing. It's like when only these 2 cards are needed to make a deck of 26 or whatever classic cards, then like that deck just never rotates out, right? Like that's it. Well, not never, but 2 years. It's a long time.
2 years, yeah.
Right? Like it should kind of like ebb and flow a little, and like it's too many of the classic cards making those 2 cards that good, which I think is why it feels that way to me. If it was like, oh, well, these 15 cards from the classic set got really good again, plus these 8 cards from TGT plus these 2 new cards from this new set. If that was the case, like then it wouldn't feel as, it's like it's just not going away for so long. That would be a different feeling, right? Because you'd be mixing and matching from sets and making things work. But instead, it's like all the classic and basics, couple cards from a new set, like Miracle Rogue, right? Miracle Rogue is like all classic basic, couple pirates from the new set.
Yeah, and I get that too. But there's also, back to, I think, Josh, your very first point today, which is, part of this can be filed under wait and see because, yeah, pirates are great here. And yes, they technically could still be around for 2 years, but who knows if in the next release more things come out, more options.
Could be good.
What's that?
Ninjas. I said right. Ninjas could become a thing. You don't know.
Yeah. But
there's no ninjas in the classic set, though. Like,
that's a very good point.
Yeah. Like you can't suddenly make ninjas good when you put 2 ninjas in.
Maybe a bunch of stuff is going to get the tribe of ninja Dills. You don't know. Maybe there's more ninjas in the classic set.
But again,
though,
that would involve changing classic cards, which they're not going to be doing, right? So, yeah. Or that'd be like putting a ninja tag on a classic card is buffing, literally. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that kind of stuff isn't going to happen. And I think that's like kind of the issue. It's like dragons will never be a thing where it's only going to take a couple of dragons to make all dragons really good because dragons weren't really like there's barely any dragons, until BlackRock. So it's like pirates just had this kind of advantage of like, well, here's like almost enough pirates, and then here's 2 really good pirates. That's all you need, and then everything changes. But I think that's the issue is you just don't want to see year after year decks with 25 plus basic and classic cards being. That's sameness, right? 3 years later, we're still playing Miracle Rogue, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's sameness.
The definition
of sameness. Yeah, exactly. So that's probably what Ben Brode is referring to, and and I agree. Like we want to see new stuff each cycle.
Yeah. Well, he also put the question forward of what we, the Hearthstone community, would prefer: A, nerfs; B, rotation to wild like old Murkai; or C. Garrett does alphabet. Staler, meta, and standard. A and B. C sounds awful.
Yeah, C sounds like the worst option here. So let's not go with that.
I can't help but think C was included by Ben as just a little bit of a poke at some of the, idiotic replies in this forum.
Well, but there's people of 2 minds, and this happens in World of Warcraft too. We dealt with this a long time ago on the instance a lot, because when they initially kind of retooled all the classes, a lot of people were like, no, I don't want to learn how to play mage again. And I think there's a lot of people out there who, to them, and they're probably not people who play Hearthstone day in and day out. They're probably people who, log in here and there, and they want to be able to use the deck that they feel like they know and they feel like they're good at, and they want it to always be good enough, right? So there's those people, and they exist. But those people are also essentially like calling for something that then makes like everybody else's game less fun, right? Like when the game never progresses, never moves forward, just stays the same. Sure, some people are really happy with that because they can always play their deck, but eventually they're the only ones left playing, right? So yeah, there's no real, I don't think in this case there's any real question what the worst of these 3 things is. So I'm sorry to some people who love their one deck, but yeah, you're holding everybody else back.
Go play it in Wild. Go play your one deck in Wild.
As long as it still exists in Wild, right? Like,
I really, like I said, like there were people in here straight up like claiming as if like 100% fact, like they had hard evidence that like, no, this is all greed. You just don't want free-to-play players to succeed, and you want everyone to have to pay money. And I'm sorry, you're insane.
People just want a new experience. They want to feel like their game is still fresh and fun. So the thing is, though, rotation to wild does help those players, right? So I think the nerfs should be very measured and calculated, not like, okay, we need to make this new set powerful, so we're nerfing 40 cards, right? That would be a mistake. So it's like a combination of the nerfs and the rotation. The wild, I think, is what makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I like both. I like being fluid. I like really a lot of what Brode mentioned here, which is just doing what they feel is right at the time. So keep doing that. So
it's good stuff.
I'm gonna just move past the new player experience because I think some of this is gonna get addressed in our chat later.
Well, we should bring up the one thing though that they said, which is that they gave us data.
Yes.
New player experience. They said the casual matchmaker has gone through a lot of iteration, and new player win rates have increased 15%. Like that's information that I find hard to believe based on my own, like what we hear from people. But if that's data that they have, if that's hard data, then okay.
But is it?
They didn't say from where, right? They just said up 15. If their original win rate was 0 and now they're at 15%,
now they're at 15%. Sure.
I would have known.
Like they're also talking about the casual matchmaker. So like the way they think of the new player experience is you come in, you do the tutorial, then you play against the AI for a while, then you jump into casual, and then you maybe move into ranked. So that's what they think everyone's process is, but I don't think that's how people really work. I think people want to come in, learn the ins and outs of the game, and then a lot of people, I think, start to feel like casual is a waste of time. And they just want to go in there. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel when I start a game. Like, I get to a certain point, I'm like, I get it, I understand. Now, like, let me run into the wall and see, like, give me a measuring stick of where I'm at, right? So I don't think that many people actually do this entire process. Yeah, but maybe I'm wrong.
But no, and I'm with you, Joss, because I want to know. And I was the first reply to this comment on Reddit, and I asked, "Hey, can we get any idea where it was before this increase?"
Yeah,
because if it was a 15% increase on 0%, congratulations, I guess. But I mean, I'm sure it wasn't. It wasn't that. But
it probably wasn't that low. But I mean, like if it was 20 to 35%, you're still losing the majority of the time. If you're going from 50 to 65%, then you're winning a majority of the time, probably feeling really good, jumping into ladder and getting your ass kicked, and then feeling really bad. So, I mean, like where that 15% falls, I think is kind of important for the discussion. And I don't know, Garrett, did you get a response?
No response.
Okay.
I'm not saying I deserved one, but I have a feeling that if they wanted that information known, he would have given it in the first place.
He would have said it went from this to this.
From this
or whatever,
to this,
right?
yeah.
But you know, like a lot of times, like people use they use that stat as just a way to kind of defend that it's not as bad as things like people may think it is. And a lot of people probably looked at it and said, "Oh, cool." But you know, like us, a lot of people looked at it and went, "What? What does that even mean? Like, you're not actually telling me anything right now." So
yeah.
I'm a little skeptical of that one. I'm very skeptical of the new player experience right now as being anything but terrible.
Yeah, and we're also, in chat rooms pointing this out right now, we're also talking about it as a change from 50% to 65%. But if you're talking about like an increase in win rate, like it depends how you word it, because if you go from 6% win rate to 7% win rate, that's a 16% increase apparently. So it's like if you're talking about change versus like win rate amount are different.
Right, exactly. Right. You don't. Percentage isn't like additive. That's not how it functions. So that's basically, this is not useful information. Is kind of I think the bottom line is, unless they told us what it was at before and where it is at now, that's useful. That's where we can actually, as we can look at that and go, oh, cool, that's a nice increase. When you just tell us, you know, oh, it was increased by 15%, we're like, cool. I don't know what to do with that information.
They went from 1% win rate to 2%. It was a 50% increase in win rate. Like,
yeah, so really, I think increasing by 15%, I think, lends itself to the 50 to 65 like we were talking about. If they said percent increase, so if they had a 15% increase, that's where you're talking about those itty bitty little changes. So I think the wording that they're talking about is saying it's gone from like 50 to 65, not like, 1 to 2 is a 50%, like a percentage increase. So maybe, I don't know, but it lends itself to a bit of interpretation that could have been just gotten rid of had they just said it went from 45 to 60. Ta-da.
Mm-hmm. Well, this isn't directed specifically at Joss, more so at math in general. I have now been bored half the tears. So let's move on from analyzing a percentage given in a Reddit reply. And let's talk about something absurd, like the location of the HCT Winter Championship. It's in the freaking Bahamas, guys. Can we go? Yeah. Did we really mess up and not make this a Patreon goal? Like, I want to go to this.
I looked it up because I've never been on an all-inclusive. I've never been to like a beach and stuff. And I was like, well, what would be a better idea than to go to the championships? This would be amazing. And then smoosh it all together with my first all-inclusive ever vacation.
Yeah, and it's $300 a night.
Huh?
It's $300 a night.
I went and looked at a 5-day vacation, like all-inclusive airfare, everything from Expedia, and it was like $2,000 a person. And I was like, oh.
Yep.
So you gotta just get Legends.
Done an exclusive, yeah.
Get Legend, and then get top 10 Legends,
and
do that like 3 or 4 months, and then win a tournament, and then it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You might even get paid.
You might even get paid.
Yeah.
I don't see what the issue is here.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem. Yeah. Honestly, I think this is kind of awesome, even though I totally can't afford to go. But yeah, so it's gonna happen in the Bahamas. It's a best of 7 conquest with one band. It's a $250,000 prize pool. It happens. It's starting Thursday, March 23rd, and runs through Sunday, March 26th. This is just ridiculous. I find it also it's just delightfully ironic that it's the Winter Championship and it's happening in the freaking Caribbean, basically. So huzzah for that. I'm jealous to everyone who is going. Have a lot of fun for me. Thanks. So,
although I don't have to actually do well, I guess, at the Winter Championships, right? Like, I just have to get there, and then I can just have fun.
Yeah, you just have to be...
because you can qualify for it, right, if you have HCT points now, and then you go into that last call tournament or whatever. I don't know exactly what the process is.
You do have to be one of the 4 best players in your region, though.
To get there.
I got this. The Bahamas are on the line. I got this.
This is now ladder anxiety. Screw that. Bahamas. Let's go.
Jocelyn,
button.
I feel like there's a more efficient way to accrue yourself a Bahamas vacation. If that's your goal. If your goal is to be like a Hearthstone pro and win some sweet prize money and also go to the Bahamas, then awesome. But if you're just like, I just really want to go to the Bahamas, I'm sure we can figure out a better way to make that happen.
Probably. But would it involve me playing a lot of Hearthstone, though? Because I'm trying to combine those two things.
Fair enough. I'm actually, within our circle, I think this does fall in line with a lot of people's life goals. I would like to go to Bahamas. I would also like to play a lot of Hearthstone. Yeah. Why not combine
By the way, I'm ranked 4 right now, pretty quickly in this season. So if this is what they're going to be doing, it might be time for me to start trying to actually try hard on this damn ladder. Stop playing weird decks and just play aggro shaman all the time.
Yep. Well,
myself in that top 10.
That's the thing. You don't actually have to be good at, tournament stuff. You just need to be the top of the ladder. And so, yeah, just be the aggro shaman expert.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
The thing is, there's a lot of aggro shaman experts out there. So it takes some skill.
And then you get to the tournament and you're like, wait, I have to bring more than one deck?
Yeah, then you
it doesn't even matter. Then you're in the Bahamas, and then you get free drinks, and it's fine.
No, but you have to win another tournament to be the top 4 in your region, though, don't you?
Which requires more than one deck. Yes, yeah. You absolutely do.
Yes.
No, it's just like, I got enough. I got enough points on the ladder. I'm in the top 4. No, that's not how it works. Anyway, the last bit of news this week, we already alluded to at the top, is that with all of this talk of the developer insights videos, the future of it, we spent a good amount of time discussing it last week. There's one coming up, and it's a live stream this time. It's a live stream Q&A developer insights with both Ben Brode and Ixar, aka Dean, who we've had on the show multiple times. This is going to be this Thursday. This Thursday, guys, the 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so noon for me, which is all I care about. I'm not going to convert the time for anyone else. So yeah, they're doing a live Q&A session on Twitch. They're taking questions via just about anything you can think of. So tweet you can tweet at them. You can ask them questions directly in the Twitch chat while it's happening. So, and I guess topics are going to include state of the game, the new player experience, the ranked play system, and obviously they'll be answering questions live. Which leads us to what is taking the place of our strategy discussion this week, which is we're going to do a roundtable talk about we're hoping is going to be a constructive hopes and dreams for ways to improve Hearthstone. And since since my bumpers are not working, and B, since we don't have a bumper for a roundtable talk, I don't know, it would probably be a Grim Patron or something. It feels like that should be it.
I was just going to say, everyone, get in here!
Yeah, I will just say that our roundtable discussion this week is brought to you by our sponsor, Get.game. This is the .game domain name. You can get it really just about any place you can go and find yourself a domain name. So if you prefer, I don't know, web.com, for example, you can find it there, or you can just go to Get.game. And it's a relatively new domain name, everyone. It's only been around since May of last year. There are still many names spelled correctly. You don't have to do like XX_Gogeta Roth 87. That doesn't need to be your thing. You can actually get something spelled correctly. Check them out. They're sponsoring this episode. Give them a shot.
There was the old .gg, and I always thought like that was kind of okay, but not as obvious as literally just .game, right? Like .gg, I'm like, yeah, I guess like, some people get that, but some people don't know what the hell that means. So .game makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Oh, what is this? What's this website for? Well, probably a game. Most likely a game.
It's about games. Great.
In some way, shape, or form. So get.game. Check it out. Now, Dills, this all started when you were like, you know what, abandon it. We're not talking Control Warrior.
Yeah.
If we're going to get hard discussion from Team 5 about possible improvements to the game, let's do this. Because why exactly, Dills? Where did the ideas you're bringing today come from?
So I was, yesterday preparing a little bit for the show today by kind of messing around with Control Warrior and stuff, but also reading up on the Hearthstone subreddit, which is something, you generally do to try to make sure you're up on what people are talking about and what any news might be. And I was just like reading through these comments, and a lot of people are making what I would say are salient points, all right? Like that the game is not perfect in this way, but there was nothing constructive about how they were saying it, and they were not giving any concrete ideas on how to maybe improve things, right? And I know like we don't necessarily need to be a community that gives Blizzard great ideas, but we do know that when Blizzard sees good ideas, they are a company that's willing to actually incorporate those ideas. And I think, we can point to a recent World of Warcraft patch where they're having, quests. Like you can find parties for your quests now in World of Warcraft as part of just the game. And that was always something you had to have an add-on to do, right? And so, and this is not the first time that's happened. So Blizzard definitely looks to the community and listens and pays attention. So I was drawing a bath at the time, and rather than join,
wait. A normal bath or a bubble bath? Because this is really important.
Bath always.
To set the
always
scene.
bubble bath.
All right.
Yeah. Nobody wants to
baths without bubbles.
If you don't have bubbles, you're just sitting in warm water staring at your own naked body.
Exactly.
No one wants to do that.
Bubbles are very important to the experience of a bath. So I'm drawing my bath, and I'm thinking, I could chime in here on Reddit. I could be one of these people just typing stuff and jamming it into the ether, and nobody pays attention ever again. Somebody scrolls past it, sees it's got 5 upvotes, and never reads a thing. Or they scroll past and they say, well, that's too long. I'm definitely not reading that. And that's what I could have done, right? But instead I decided, no, you know what? I'm going to grab my glass of Cabernet. I'm going to get in this bubble bath with my iPad. I'm going to pull up my notes app, and I'm going to jot down some ideas that I think are concrete and realistic, and we're going to talk about them here. And I just want to get your live feedback on some of these. So I think we all come from the same place of wanting the game to be better, not because we think the game sucks, but because we think that the game can be better. You can always make the game better. And like anything in life, even if you love something and you think it's so perfect, you also want it to improve and not be stagnant, right? Like, your kid is the greatest thing in the world, but you still want them to learn how to read. You still want them to grow up and learn stuff and be good and get better, right? So I think in a lot of ways of Hearthstone, kind of like, to me, it's like this game that I want to nurture and help make better. So I don't want to yell at Hearthstone and Team 5 and the devs. I want to write down ideas that I think are logical and make sense and present them to the world. And I know that they listen to the show, so, this is way better than a Reddit comment that gets scrolled right past, right?
I haven't been reading too much of Reddit lately, just because I find so many of the comments and even the posts themselves sometimes are just basically how could you let this happen? Or the comment is just 4 mana 7/7, and that's all
it just beats you down with the memes.
It does.
Yeah.
So I haven't really. I keep reading. I read the TAC Reddit. I love them, but there's not as many posts there. It's usually 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah, I check in there by once a week and read up whatever the new things are.
There's an ebb and flow to it. I mean, I've certainly spent a large chunk of my life talking about how angry Reddit makes me from time to time, but I would give them a fair shake. Sometimes they're not always bad, but lately it's been a little salty.
It's been rough on the Hearthstone.
It's still very much though a useful tool, I think, and the place where more discussion is being had than anywhere else. So for that, it's still useful, and you can find the diamonds in the rough, but you just have to filter through, a bunch of angry nerds to. to use a phrase that Garrett has coined. But yeah, so this was me taking myself out of the situation of any stressful, like there's no stress around me. I'm in a bubble bath. I'm drinking wine. I'm on my iPad, and I'm just thinking about things that I think would be cool in Hearthstone, right? And this comes from, us doing this show for freaking 3 years or whatever we've been doing this show now for, and all the things that have come and all the time I've spent playing Hearthstone. I think we have ideas. I think that make sense. So I'll start here. I think what we need limited to be called limited, and we need to have a wild and standard version of limited. So rather than just what we have now, which is essentially arena, which is always wild, you have a wild arena, you have a standard arena, and your awards for all limited play are wild and standard packs, not packs that you get from a set, but instead when you are doing like a wild limited whatever it is arena, I'll get into what the other things are. I can decide whether I'm trying to build my standard collection or I'm trying to build my wild collection, but I'm not just all I can get is the latest set, because I think a lot of players come in, they look at how to build their collection, and they see arena as an imperfect way to do it because all you can get is cards from the latest set, right? And so this is not a great way to build a collection if I per se want to play wild, right? And there are inherent problems with this, which of course is that wild probably won't see as much play, but I think that's okay because I think there's enough people, and if you're willing to deal with some queue times, you can be like, I'm a wild arena player, right? But I think I've heard this from a lot of standard arena, or I've heard this from a lot of arena players, that they feel a little left out, that standard rotations don't do anything for them, and they're just kind of on the sidelines, right? Like we just now have to always play wild, whether we like it or not.
So 2 different arenas, one wild, one standard.
When you click limited, and then when you get into limited, you can flip the thing just like you do right now, where you just click the button and it flips you into wild or standard,
and
right?
Vines appear.
So all the buttons are the same once you click into limited. You just decide whether you're wild or standard.
So then that's kind of like the first idea is wild and standard arena, and I say absolutely, why not?
Because I want to
would
preface
play
a lot of this
standard
too.
arena.
Sure, like I would like to play standard arena, but sometimes I might feel like playing wild arena.
Well, I mean,
or I'm missing a card for wild, and
specifically me as someone who is not an arena player, I find arena very intimidating right now because it pulls from the whole entire card collection, and I spend so much of my time basically minus a couple of tavern brawls every week playing on the standard ladder, so I'm very familiar with the cards and the decks and everything that's going on the standard ladder. I don't even remember like half the GVG cards because I'm not touching them. I'm not playing with them. I'm not seeing them all the time.
On a day-to-day basis. Sure.
Exactly. Like, I mean, even when we get tavern brawls where you have to build a deck, and I'm just, oh my god, Sludge Belcher is a thing. Oh right, like totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now looking at that in arena, like I wouldn't know what a good arena pick was, even when presented 3 cards, because the amount of knowledge I have to have about what everyone else might have, and that goes for even just playing out my cards once I get into an arena game, is just way too intimidating. It's not really worth my time. So if there was a way for me to play arena the same way I play ladder, and say I just want to play with standard cards, then I think that would bring down the barrier to entry, and that's something that I would do as a standard Hearthstone player. Yeah,
new players who just want to play standard aren't going to feel like there's cards that they don't, like they've never even heard of this card, right? So,
yeah, especially if they weren't around before Year of the Kraken started, right? Like if you've literally just been playing standard and you've never had the opportunity to buy GVG packs, and that's not part of your collection, all of a sudden you have to go play arena and you just have to know these things. I feel like it would be a lot better.
Shielded shows up and you're like, what the hell? Yeah. So then the other thing I want to say, because one thing too about arena is I feel like, we've talked about it. You guys don't necessarily enjoy the experience of arena as much as I do, but like in World of Warcraft, you may not enjoy the experience of doing a mythic right now, But you would still do it because it's part of what you need to do to earn your way into the other stuff, right? And I think that's one of the things you don't get the feeling of in Arena anymore, is like you don't feel like what you're doing there is building your collection and earning cards and earning rewards that matter. So, you know, you actually find more satisfaction in doing something like Arena, which I keep saying Arena, but really I want it to be called Limited from here on out. But, you know, that's another thing. But like that satisfaction of earning makes you feel okay about doing something that might be a little less enjoyable because you feel like you're getting closer to what it is you eventually want to do, right? Which is constructed play. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of players go into Arena and they get promised like, oh, this is a good way to build your collection. And then they find that doesn't really feel like it is for them. So another thing that I think we should be doing is when you get your limited rewards, whatever they are, you get an extra box each time, right? So whether you earned 2, you get 3. You open 3, and then you select 1 to discard. Right, and if you get 5, you get 6, and you select 1 to discard. This gives you the option to be building towards what it is you are actually trying to get to. So if I'm trying to get cards, I may throw back like some gold and keep some dust because now that gives me the ability to craft a card I'm looking for. Or if I'm an Arena player and I don't even care about dust because I'm not building cards, I throw the dust back and I keep the gold because that's making me an infinite player, right? That's like all I really care about as Arena player.
I love that,
like
actually.
I can just get what I want a little bit more. And you're not just asking them exactly what you want. You're just saying, okay, chuck back one of these boxes. Open all the boxes, and I chuck one back. And, you know, so like you can kind of decide what your goal is and actually actively pursue it. Because I think right now you're at the whimsy of whatever the luck happens.
That feels like a very
things and whatever.
Feels like a very Hearthstone like idea. Like I can see that. I can see the big red X just appearing, you know, when I tap on it and it poof goes away and I get the little ethereal magic smoke and a new box opens and there's still some randomness involved. You're not guaranteed to get gold, but if, you know, say that was the thing you're going for. But yeah, no, I like that one a lot. Not that I didn't like your previous idea.
They don't care about cards necessarily. They just want to keep playing Arena. Right. And like, but a lot of people just care about cards. They don't care about continuing to play Arena. So if they could, you know, sometimes get an extra pack for 3 wins, you know, like they'd be like, sick, I got 2 packs. I'll throw this gold back to keep.
I was going to say, you know? So would each of the boxes have a chance to roll something? Like, would there be a chance that you could
get at least one pack still?
Okay,
one pack.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And then the other boxes, then like out of the other boxes, you have like a very small chance to roll a second pack, right? That type of stuff. And the higher you get, like the chances go up. Like currently, you can get 2 packs. You just have to win like 10, 11, or 12, and you can sometimes get 2 packs, right? But you know, like if you win 1 game or whatever, you still get 2 boxes. This will give you 3 boxes, and then you could chuck back, you know, the gold or the dust, right? Out of those things.
I like it.
So then the other thing is sealed, standard, limited will be added, and I don't care what this is. I'm just talking about another version of limited. So this is 90 cards get offered at the beginning. You just build your 30 card deck and you go. And again, you have wild and standard. So this is why I'm talking about limited, and this we don't have to get into because we've discussed on the show in the past, like other forms of limited, right? And I don't care what they call it. I just want there to be like, once I click limited or whatever it is, I have Arena and something else. I don't just have this version of Arena, which is here's 3 cards, pick one.
Pick 3, do it 30 times.
Whatever that is. Yeah. And then you still have Classic. Now here's the one for Garrett. Mock drafts can be done just to practice. So I can click in there and I can just do a draft if I want to without buying into it. Or I can save a deck that I've drafted with money and play my friends. You can also challenge a friend to a limited duel, right? So I can just click my friend and challenge him, and it says standard, wild, and then it says, you know, arena duel or whatever. I click that. We both enter the draft phase. Once we're done, we go right into a match against each other, right? This type of thing. And again, I'm not going to get into details about how to implement it, but this type of thing, because it opens up a whole new avenue for the community to build really cool events, right? Which we just don't have the option to do right now.
It would also be a fantastic teaching tool for Arena.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You could just practice it a few times, kind of get the sense of how it works, and then be like, okay, I'm ready to spend gold on this now.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah. So there would be no like entry fee because you're just playing.
Yeah,
your friends,
you don't
right?
play the games. You just go through the draft process and whatever. Like, it just gives players like a few more ways to like get over that anxiety, maybe of like, I'm actually throwing 150 gold into this or $2 or whatever. So this is not perfect and would have to be hashed out, but this is just like the general idea. Okay, purchasable standard prepaid decks. We talked about this on the other show, but just want to kind of solidify it. So 1 for each class. None of the decks include legendaries, but they give you suggested legendaries for the deck. Like when you purchase the deck, they suggest that at some point you may want to replace this card with this legendary, right? So you get 1 for each class, and basically what you're doing is you're buying the rares and epics you don't have, because those are very expensive to craft. But those cards are not disenchantable. You can use them in other decks or whatever, but you can't like buy a deck just to disenchant and make a bunch of dust so that you can go make a card you need. This is literally just for like new players to like get a bunch of cards they don't have. And then you just have things like Zoo Warlock, Midrange Shaman, Miracle Rogue, but instead of Leroy, you'd put in like the charging 2/1 Pirate and things like that. Right, so you kind of give them like a stripped down version that has, the rares and epics that they don't have, but you don't give them the legendary, right? You don't give them the Tyrion, you don't give them the Ragnaros, you don't give them the Leroy. They still have to go out and earn those.
I think the idea of not being able to disenchant them makes it a whole lot more likely to be implemented, because I think the problem is basically the idea of buying dust and all the rest of it. So I think if they just are for new players, cards that you can't disenchant, things you can buy to get started, I think that's a great idea. And I think key to that idea is what you just said, which I don't think we mentioned on our actual big in-depth discussion of this idea. So I think that might be the key.
We scratched the surface.
If I could insert a monkey wrench, Jocelyn, you usually bring up the counterpoint to many things, which is confusion for new players. I would think that my buddy who just started playing having a rare minion that he can't disenchant, and me having the exact same rare minion and I can disenchant it would be pretty weird. And also, I'm curious about just how executable that would be in the coding of Hearthstone. It's like,
it's definitely something they don't currently have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they do currently have it. They have basic cards and cards from like they can convert cards from adventures from non-disenchantable to disenchantable. So they can do it, but you literally have to just put like a little mark on it, like this was purchased, right? This card was purchased. And yes, of course, there are definitely conversations to be had if you were going to implement this on exactly how to do it. But this is just the overarching idea, right? Of how like you can kind of make this work. And then, of course, if you already own some of the cards, you can scale the price based on that. But that's, again, something for... Like, I'm not going to sit here in my bubble bath, and crunch the numbers on how much a rare card is worth and how much you discount the price. But that obviously would have to be part of the equation as well.
I agree. I just wanted to put that out there because it seems like we always bring that point up, and I would feel remiss if we didn't mention it there. But
the idea here is that when you start, like when you start the game, and I've recently been starting to play other card games just to kind of see what those things feel like, and the ability to purchase a deck that I can immediately start to play, that I didn't have to think and learn how to build and whatever. It helps so much when you're just getting into a game to wrap your head around things like that, right? And you could kind of cycle through them and see, like, Miracle Rogue, this is a tricky combo-based deck that's very difficult to operate, and blah, 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 blah. And you go, okay, that's probably not for me, but maybe I'm a player who likes that challenge. Like Zoo, this is a minion-based deck. Play your minions, trade efficiently, and win the game. It gives you a little description. It gives you an idea of, like, what decks are like in Hearthstone, right? So for a new player, it kind of opens you up a little bit to how the game works. Whereas right now, you just don't know. You come into a game like this, especially if you're not a card game player, and you're just lost right off the bat. So I only have a couple more, but ladder rework, this is just simple ideas. Players with under 100 wins cannot play other players with under 100 wins unless they get over rank 15. Sounds like they're already kind of doing something like this, like when we just heard from Ben Brode. Yeah. Move win streaks to 2 wins. Rank 5 to Legend stays the way it is. And Legend players get 10 bonus stars at the beginning of next season for achieving Legend. So you still get your 1 per rank, and then you get 10 more because you were Legend. And like a rank 1 player doesn't get the extra 10, but the Legend player does. And so the Legend players, when they restart the next season, they're not playing rank 15 players ever. They're literally starting only by playing other Legend players. And their grind to get back is much faster because that's what they care about, and they just want to get back there. And we, as non-Legend players, don't really want to be playing against them. We just want to go through our thing, and it shortens the grind a little bit, but having the 5-2 Legends still be a 1-to-1 win-loss thing means you still have to be a positive win rate player to get to Legend. So it still makes Legend like an achievement, right? Mm-hmm. So these are just like simple ideas you can just throw out. And then this one's for the pros. Legend ladder ends at 6 p.m. on the 31st or whatever, not friggin' midnight, not whatever. Like it ends in the middle of the day in your region, in your time zone or whatever. And of course they'll have to pick one of the time zones within that region, right? So in NA you've got West Coast, East Coast, but you just pick like whatever. You pick one of them. But you end it like more in the middle of the day, not at the end of the night. Because I know this totally sucked for players on New Year's Eve who are trying to earn HCT points and also not be, complete shut-ins, right, in their lives. And then all games that start before the reset, count. So if you started your game before the reset's about to happen, you can't, because what a lot of players I've heard do is you start your game, and if you feel like you're losing, you just rope.
Yeah.
And then you just make the game last forever so that once the server resets, your game doesn't actually matter, right? And then the other guy's like, dude, I'm winning. Let me get the game over. I want to get it in before the end. So that sucks. And then your final rank is not awarded until all of the games that started before it are now concluded. And there's a short predetermined time where the servers and the queues just stop while all games are completed. And then that server reset is then just when it brings back online, everyone sees what their final rank is. And we don't get this crap that all these pro players vying for HCT points have to deal with, where the turnover is the most frustrating part of the experience for them because they're like rank 5 and they're like, do I queue? Do I not queue? What do I do? Okay, I queued. Oh, God, I'm losing. Okay, rope. Like, it's just stupid how it ends up working. And so these are, and this is not going to affect us, but it is something I know that matters.
Jocelyn, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I have a question.
All right, I'm done. Go.
Dills, can I have a leaderboard?
Well, yeah. I would like that, but I see why they don't give that, to be honest. But yeah, I would like it. I would like a leaderboard that you can see at all times, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great. You just click on in-game. I mean, the fact that a week later they just make a post on the forums and they're like, here's what happened. Everybody's... All the pro players actually have a friggin' leaderboard. It's their friends list, right? Yeah. And they're checking all the time. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of dumb for them, what they have to go through at the very end of the ladder. So, anyway.
I agree.
That's a lot of ideas, I know. But I just wanted to be like, here's positive stuff. These are real legit ideas. And I think these are all implementable, but these are just the basics. These are the outlines. These are not we're not getting into the nitty gritty of all the details about it. And the reason why I want to put these out there is we're going to hear a bunch from them, I think, in a few days about what their plans may actually be. And, I'm curious to hear what those are. And these might not make any sense in 3 or 4 days. So,
I agree. I like a lot of your ideas, man. I really like the idea. I don't know, it seems like something that we may never see, but I do like the idea of your arena rewards of having a wild pack and a standard pack.
Yeah,
I can already see
the standard pack includes all current standard expansion cards.
Yeah, right? Could I'm such a visual thinker. I can already see the standard pack in my head. It has whatever the celestial animal is for that year. That's what it is. It looks like a constellation of a kraken if it's the year of the kraken. It's a constellation of the unicorn if Jocelyn is the happiest person ever for the next standard year. That would be great.
But here's the other cool thing, right? Is adventures are fun and great, but they are a super barrier to free to play players. And there's a lot of players who are just gonna be free to play, right? They're just gonna be. They made that decision and they're sticking with it and they're gonna be free to play. If they have a chance to get an adventure card out of that pack, that might convince them to go and play some arena, right? So that kind of fixes the issue of not a lot of people playing arena. in a way. But then the other thing is, like, there's a lot of players, I think, who are kind of on this cusp, right, where they would spend some money if they felt that there was a reasonable chance to kind of get what they need and get to a point where they can play the way they want. But they won't if they don't feel that way, right? So they won't spend the money on an adventure because they're like, that's 45 cards. I need, like, the other, 150 from this set or whatever it is and a bunch from this set. So you know what? I'm just not going to spend money. I'm not going to play this game. And they basically we lose those people right off the bat, right? And there are players like you, Garrett, who are like, I'll spend some money, but not all the money to get everything.
Yeah, I kind of set a budget for myself.
And then I want to earn the rest of it.
Right? Yeah, I set a budget for myself because otherwise it would just be ridiculous.
Sure.
I like going to Orlando for long weekends. That wouldn't happen if I didn't budget Hearthstone for myself.
Exactly.
I completely agree. You bring up some really good points. I think the discussion of having an option of getting adventure cards in any type of pack, whatever pack that might be, maybe it is this mythical standard / wild pack in a really cool version of Arena I would be super into, where we have a split between standard and wild. Maybe that's it. But that's, I think, a big conversation would be interesting to have with Team 5. But I agree. And at the same time, why not just let us craft adventure cards from the get-go also?
Yeah, like, I mean, the reason they don't now is, like, what's your incentive to buy the adventure or whatever, right? But
well, it would still be a huge incentive, I think, because, I mean, unless adventures do happen where there's very few relevant cards. So, yeah, I guess that's a good point. But for the most part, I want the cards, though. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's some people who aren't like that, but...
well, here's one way to incentivize buying it is you buy the adventure, you get all the cards, and then if you beat it on Heroic, you get all the golden cards. And if you enchant them, you can't ever enchant the golden cards.
Yeah, let's
do it that way. And then it's like, okay, well, all right, I'm buying the damn adventure, right? And everybody else can go enchant a single whatever if they want to. I mean, there's lots of ways to incentivize things correctly while still making it possible to get things. But if I'm being real with myself, my Asian account is never going to be playable on ladder ever, because all I'm ever doing on there is earning cards through Arena, and there ain't no way I'm dropping 700 gold on each wing of all the adventures I need to start playing in Standard. It's just not happening, right? It's just not going to happen. And by the time those cards become enchantable, they're in Wild now, and I definitely will never have enough cards to play Wild on that account. So that account will basically I'll never get there. It's just never going to happen. So essentially, all I'm really doing is trying to stay infinite on the ladder or on the Arena. That's all I'm really doing with that account.
To put that in perspective, though, I mean, you are a special case. I mean, if that was your only account, I think you might be a little more inclined to really go for it, really work on your collection to the best of your ability without spending a cent. Ben Brode even brought up in that comment I brought up that I thought was just ridiculous of how everything in Hearthstone, every update they make is based on greed and selling more cards. I completely disagree with. Ben Brode even brought up in there, like, listen, free-to-play players still do make it to Legends. So
I'm sure they have to, but they're limited in what decks they can play, and I think just that they can make it to Legend is not a good enough argument that things are okay, right? Like,
and that's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but I think Ben Brode is kind of saying that when he makes those points, right? Like, oh, it's okay the way it is because it's possible to get to Legend as a free-to-play player, and it's like, yeah, you can, but is it fun? Like, are you doing things that you're enjoying in the game, or are you grinding a very simple and cheap version of a mid-range aggro shaman?
I think there's definitely a distinction between a new player and a free-to-play player, but I think a lot of the improvements that you're putting forward, Dills, also helps new players. So I'm all for it.
I mean, my idea here is not to ruin Blizzard's money-making model. My idea here is to actually incentivize people to end up spending money. Like, I've talked about this forever when I worked at my previous company, because my boss was like, just, we were stagnant income-wise for so long. And I kept telling him, we need to let people, like, get a little more at the beginning to the point where they want to then grow, right? Because we were offering a service that made people kind of want to grow. And I think what you need to do is you need to get people, like, started so that they get excited about the possibility to grow. And then suddenly the wallet loosens a little bit, and they go, oh, well, I'm already here. Like, how much does it take to get me there? Oh, like 20 more bucks? Okay. Like, that I can do. But when they start here and then they go, how much does it take to get to there? $80? Well, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm done. I'm out, right? And, that's the attitude that it's hard to break through that person. But that's, I think, makes up most of the people who play Hearthstone, is people who they're not willing to spend a ton, but if they felt like they could spend a little more, like they go from spending 0 to some, right? And suddenly it's like there is more money coming in from Blizzard. So I want Blizzard to succeed I want this game to succeed, but you got to get people started, right? Yeah. And you got to have like the carrot on the stick needs to not be 500 yards away and fuzzy as hell, right? It needs to be clear and in front of you, and that there's a thing I can get to, right? And then like you guys talked about with Walking Dead, you were like, what's the point of watching the show anymore? Like they're just gonna keep. This is another bad guy, and then another bad guy, and another bad guy. Like you don't want Hearthstone to feel that way to people, where it's like, what's the point of playing, right? There's never gonna get where I need, and then another expansion comes out, and I'm further behind. So, more ways to get rid of that feeling for players is good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree entirely. I had a couple thoughts too, mostly on new player experience and ranked play system. I mean, those are the two things that are apparently going to be talked about this Thursday on the live stream, or this Friday on the live stream. One of the things I'm surprised I don't see mentioned more, like in things that could improve a new player's experience with Hearthstone, is like more PvE content, because this is something you see in competitors. Like, Magic's like MTGO is extremely kind of crappy and a flawed experience, but their mobile games actually have pretty good PvE experiences that I think do a good job teaching you how to play the game. Whereas in Hearthstone, if you're just getting in for the first time, there's a few encounters at the very beginning, and then it's like, yeah, just get in the ladder, get over there. And I find it interesting that that's considered okay. I feel like ladder. I feel like ranked play in general in just about any game that should be for the more hardcore. Why isn't there something a little more casual, a little more pick up and play, like maybe a campaign mode for new / casual players? Dills, I think you may be muted.
And I see someone in the chat giving the argument that this is not that easy to implement. And I'm not saying it's easy. Nothing about what I said that, this is easy to do. But the fact is, it's 3 years into the game, other games are putting stuff like this in. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
All this is very possible. And we understand the limitations around the client and the things like that, which are probably one of the bigger obstacles that they're facing.
Yeah, it's dismissive. We have someone in the chat room literally saying, "Learn to code and then talk about this stuff," and it's just
like we have no place to talk about it because we're not.
It's like, and I've seen
which is also an assumption that none of us have ever coded, which is not the truth. So
learn your host and then talk smack, sir.
Yeah. But we had a bunch of coders, but we also had a bunch of people whose job it was to come up with the ideas that the coders then themselves did. Those people were valid and valuable members of the team, and they did not code any of the stuff that we actually ended up doing. I've worked at any companies that worked like that.
I mean, last episode and this episode, I mean, there's always feedback all over the board, but I've seen a lot of dismissive comments along the lines of like what that person in the chat room is saying, but then also like the game is the way it is. If you don't like it, stop doing the show and stop playing it. It's like, well, no, also dismissive. And how do you go through life, sir or madam? Like, if that's just how you view everything is just the way it is. And if you don't like how it is, just stop doing or enjoying or being a part of whatever that person.
We're actively trying to be part of this community, and there's a lot of people who just want to tear everything down.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of people just want to tear everything down. I prefer to build things up.
This
to those
podcast,
people, I say it's easier for you to stop listening to the show than it is for me to stop playing Hearthstone.
Yes. Yeah, this podcast, I'm assuming the podcast you would like, to those people with these kind of dismissive comments, is someone bullet list reading the news from the week and then ending the show after 20 minutes. Yeah. Because that's it. We're here to have a conversation.
To start your own show and say your opinion, right? And like that's absolutely something that I want people to do. There's a great community of Hearthstone podcasts out there, and they all offer something different.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's one that offers exactly that. But if there isn't one, like that's the thing. You create the thing, and that's why I wanted to sit down and come up with ideas and actually write them out and think them through, is because it's like, what's my way to help this game? Well, I do a show about it. We know Blizzard listens to it. here we go. This is like
this is your
literally
platform.
my platform to do that. Yeah. So, hopefully they listen to it, and then if Ixar goes, nope, that can't be done. That can't be done. Oh, but that might be interesting. Then hey, if one little jewel of hope comes through from because he's given me personal feedback on things I've said on like YouTube videos and stuff. They listen. So we should be speaking constructively.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hear the same thing, and it does sound a little bit like bragging, like, "Oh, well, Blizzard employees have told me thanks, they got a cool idea." But it does happen. Like when a Blizzard employee tells me shut up, it's not helpful, I'll stop doing it. When a random YouTube commenter is telling me that, I'm not going to respond to it for the most part. Unless I see, I don't know, maybe 50 of them within 1 week, then maybe there's a pattern of me saying really dumb things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will also take constructive feedback.
This has been podcast therapy with the Tech Crew. Anyway, real quick, back to my thing. So in short, I would love to see some more PvE content. Just because I think it would be fun and cool, and I'd like to play through it personally, but I also think it would be more conducive to a new player's experience. And I just find it strange that I don't see more discussion about that. And then also on ranked play, I touched on it a little bit last week in Dills when you were like, I'm bringing concrete ideas. I was like, no, I want to dive into this now, which is the ranked play system and the whole discussion of, and this goes back to like an almost 4-year-old article now, I believe, the whole you're better than you think. Than your think thing, where they showed the percentage of the Hearthstone players where they fall within the rank system, and that 75% of Hearthstone players fall between ranks 25 and 15. And then since then, more comments have come out from Team 5 saying like, yeah, maybe the ranks don't feel as prestigious as they should, and that's kind of where my brain is too. Like if 15 and above accounts for the top 25% of the player base, I think that like. I'm not saying we should go to like longer forums. There's discussions. There's a lot of different discussions I think that can be had about ranked play, and a lot of them that I would like to have, and I'm sure we'll have in the future. But right now, like if we're looking at just keeping it a month-long cycle and whatnot, I would just like to see that again. I always come back to the gamification of the progress on ladder, just revamped a little bit, just spruced up. I think there's a reason we have bronze through diamond in every other Blizzard game with a ladder. And I think we could bring that back. It's something that Hearthstone had at the very beginning during the beta, but it was kind of ridiculous because if you had a positive win rate, you climbed like crazy. But
everybody eventually got to Grandmaster.
Yeah. And we're even seeing,
that was dumb, but
like if I'm going to use Overwatch and Heroes as an example, they have bronze through diamond. They even go beyond that. But even with that, in that there is granularity. Like Heroes has bronze 5 through 1, silver 5 through 1. Upwards and onwards. I mean, I'm not saying that we should take it and do bronze through diamond, 5 ranks each, although that would be 25 ranks. What I would like to see is like the 75%, like your player portions divided up in a different way. I'm not sure exactly how you would go about doing that. I almost think there should be like more stars early on and less stars later on, or something of that nature, so that maybe 75% of the player base fell into gold and below, and the top 25% was in, platinum, diamond. Maybe they have a masters, maybe not. Maybe they just keep, maybe it's just legend after diamond.
Legend.
Yeah.
They can call their masters version legend. That'd be fine.
Yeah, but something about that in my like that, because that's what Overwatch has been doing since the get-go. It hasn't even been out that long, and within 3 seasons they've already been like, okay, yeah, we're changing who goes where. And Heroes just had a big update where they changed the population of the game, how many of them fall within a certain amount of rank. So like diamond is now more prestigious in Heroes than it used to be, because more of the player base is now falling in the like gold and below.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's funny because they made these kind of attempts at doing it, but I remember a few shows ago, I think, Jocelyn, you were saying at the end of the season, you see like what percentage you're at. Mm-hmm. You can see that all the time. And you were like, oh, really? It's like, because why would you know that, right? And unless you like
it's
literally...
like when you hover over your rank
you have to go
somewhere?
into the quest tab area where you see your quests and your levels.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then you hover over your rank and it shows
that you basically never go to unless you forget what quest popped up at the beginning.
And then why would you ever hover over your little rank? Like there's no indicator that would tell you anything, right? So yeah, it's like what you're saying, Garrett, is like very true, that the player base should know where they actually stand, but they feel terrible about being rank 15, right?
Right.
And I talked about this in my video after hitting Legend for the first time, that it's you basically in Hearthstone have two ranks, legend and not legend.
Yes.
Right? And
yeah, it's very binary.
In between, people don't even talk about. So
and
make those matter to people.
And part of that onus is on us, the community. Like stop being dismissive jerks to people who are like rank 5. It's like, oh, you're not a legend, you know, piece of crap. Why are you doing a podcast? And totally, this isn't personal at all. It's totally personal.
It used to be that it was like competitive was like people would consider that kind of rank 5 and above. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly it became legend or not legend. And then now there's even, you know, like, oh, well, you might be legend, but you're dumpster rank legend. You're not top 100 legend.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's gotten even worse.
It's even worse now. So it's just like the community has gotten more and more and more down on itself to the point that like they don't even care that you are, you know, in the top 2,000 out of 20 million players. They're just like, not your dumpster legend. I don't even want to hear your opinion. Yeah, and it's this crazy, ridiculous negativity towards players in a game where
in a card game, by the way, because Magic, like top 8ing a tournament is all people really care about. Somebody wins it, sure, but they really count all your top 8s as being your achievements, not necessarily how many wins, because a lot of times the guy who won it kind of just got luckier than the other top 8 guys, not necessarily like he was way better. So really the consistency of how often you get that far.
You place, yeah,
is what matters, right? And that shouldn't be the same in Hearthstone, but yet for some reason it's not.
Yeah, so those are my thoughts, and obviously I would love just I'm with Dills 1,000,000% on a deeper limited experience. I don't care what it is, something besides pick 3 30 times, pick one of 3 30 times.
Yeah, and then do that for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
Tell me how much fun you're having then.
Yeah.
I mean, then all of this kind of comes down to, you know, it's really just that we want card releases, yes, obviously, but that's like that's the minimum you should be doing as a card game. There's also just feature updates, format updates.
I feel the need to defend Smoxco in the chat room too. People are getting on this person's case a little bit because we personally reacted to a few things that Smoxco said. So my goal was not to make Smoxco the sacrificial lamb of all of the dismissive comments I've read over the past week. I totally get where Smoxco's coming from in, you know, keep development time in mind, and we try to the best of our ability.
Yes, and like the ideas I'm giving, I'm not saying like these need to happen within a month.
All of them must be announced on Friday. Otherwise,
I'm saying like these are things that we should be working towards. And if like something comes, you know, what we just don't want a full year where like the only thing that really happened was more deck slots and Heroic Tavern Brawl, right? And that's kind of what 2016 was. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's where the fatigue comes from for players.
Hearthstone at BlizzCon was overshadowed by a single Tavern Brawl that was announced 2 weeks prior. That's weird. That's just weird is all I'm saying. Like, as a hype machine, as someone who is interested in the marketing of a video game, I find that extremely bizarre and maybe not all that well thought through.
Mm-hmm. But we continue to like love the crap out of this game, and that speaks to how good the game actually is, right? And like the game itself, just bare bones with nothing else around it, it's fantastic, so well designed. And I've been playing a lot of other card games just kind of because a lot of them have been coming out. The reason they're coming out is because people see the market for card games now because of Hearthstone has grown, and there's money to be made here. So more of these are going to come out. They all work with different systems and stuff, and Hearthstone has a great system, right? So the way combat works, the way that you know, like you can complain all you want about the fact you can't do anything on the other guy's turn. It's actually really well done. Like it actually makes the game much more accessible and a lot more enjoyable for people to spectate, right? Because you're not spectating a guy passing priority 5 times. You're spectating people doing meaningful things and then people responding and people responding again. And the ebb and flow is very real in a game like Hearthstone because of how well designed the damn game is. So all we want is to continue to try our best to help make it an even better game.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, this was the big news today, was all the things Ben Brode has talked about. Obviously, we wanted to speak on that, and what we wanted to do was give some concrete suggestions, something beyond being like, yes, we also agree that that's a problem. That's not helpful. It's not an interesting conversation. Exactly. Yeah. This is the most respect we feel we could pay to Team 5, and is this discussion that we just had. So hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, that's cool too. I look forward to reading your constructive feedback. So, anyways, let's wrap this up with an email or two.
Hello?
Hey, Bumpers!
Oh, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
I instinctively clicked on the bumper, and this time it worked. Thank you, Windows 10, you fickle operating system. Hey, emails are brought to you by our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Seriously, you guys are awesome. We really do appreciate the support. And this episode, thank you to Robert R., Jean AVC, Marsh R., Jordan, Undead N., Aaron, no last name given, Havoc, no last name given, John M.D., and Daniel S. Thank you all so much for your support of the show. And we'd like to
I
remind
love the idea that someone thought that they had, or that you specifically thought that you had to put undead in there, otherwise they wouldn't know. Like, I am Jordan Undead, and that helps.
No, I got to it. I'm sure a lot of people just, have undead as their handle, so I needed to put something there to make it a little more specific. Anyways, we'd like to remind you folks, you can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to join the show. Our email today comes to us from Multizord, who writes, Dear Frayed Feathered Fowl, Illidan is one of the most iconic characters in Warcraft, and despite being the final boss of the tutorial, his actual card has only seen fringe play over the life of the whole game. I had him pop up in a game where Shaman played Evolve against me today. Anyway, he continues. Do you think he's due for a buff or reprint like Deathwing Dragonlord? His power level relative to his importance in the lore is extremely weak, and I find this almost as offensive as if Blizzard released an unplayable Arthas card one day. Keep on clucking. I 100% feel Multisword here. I'm not saying that I think this is like the importance of a lore character is onus for how strong a card should be, but that being said, I would like to see Illidan played a little more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a golden Illidan, and I remember when I was making the Reno Demon N'Zoth wild deck, I was like scrolling through my list, and everyone was like, Golden Illidan, put him in, he belongs in the list. And I put him in, and he never was good. It sucks. He is a super cool character. But I think the answer is not change his current card, because it's okay that his current card is not that great. You think about it, Deathwing's first version is still way stronger than Deathwing Dragonlord has ever been. You could reprint another version of Illidan, especially now that Illidan's so big in the current version of Legion, where it could be, instead of Illidan the Betrayer, it's like Illidan the Redeemed or something like that, and it's kind of part of this new story that we're seeing with Illidan, and it's, a better card. That could be cool.
I was thinking Illidan Demon Hunter, but yeah, same.
Sure,
same
Illidan Demon Hunter. Yeah, whatever you want it, like however you want to, name the cards.
Spice
and stuff.
it up. Yeah.
You have an opportunity here because there is so much going on with this character now, and of course I know Hearthstone is no longer Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft, but come on, it still kind of is.
It's still a Warcraft game.
Yeah, it still pulls from Warcraft. Yeah,
exactly.
Also,
I don't know what their plans are for the next set, but I would love to see an Illidan version that does something very cool.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Dills. I'm laughing at chat room who said Illidan the Prepared.
Illidan Prepared, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's always been prepared. It's you.
Yeah, it's everyone else who's not prepared.
Yeah. If there was a set, like a Black Temple set or like an Illidan set, though, someone has to just be like the Prepared Adventurer or something.
Yes.
Like that has to be a thing. Actually, it could be it could be a counterpart to the Angry Chicken. It could be the Prepared Turkey. It's done. It's cooked all the way through.
His older version or whatever was pretty cool. It wasn't. I think it was a thing where you both players discarded their hands or something and then drew 3 cards. But they didn't like it because they didn't like you messing with the other guy's hand. Mm-hmm. But you could make him now like a warlock specific demon with really cool stats that like discards 3 of your cards and draws 3 new ones or something. So it like kind of cycles through your deck a little bit, but then also of course has the added benefit of working really well with the new discard mechanics that warlocks have, right? So he's kind of like a high-end Zoo card, because Zoo is like gone now, right?
Yeah.
So you can maybe make Illidan be a card that then makes like Zoo viable again by being a big buff to his discard mechanic, because not only do you discard cards, you then draw new ones, And so you can like draw a double with the Malchezaar's Imp, or you can play
Parrot
silverware
Imp, that'd be
golems.
perfect.
Like, yeah, there's all kinds of cool things that could be done with him. And then he's like a 5/6 for 5, like you have with the Draconid Operative, right? Where it's like an amazing card, also a good body. Like that's Illidan's problem right now.
Yeah,
Pretty
he's
cool.
surprisingly expensive.
Yeah, 6 mana, 7/5, so doesn't live through a lot. And then you also have to then play a bunch of stuff on that same turn to get a bunch of 2/1s that then also just die to a bunch of stuff, right? So
Illidan
I got him
Storm
from the
Rage.
Golden Monkey, and I was like, damn it.
yeah.
No,
I tried. I really did try in that Reno Demon N'Zoth, and that should be the deck that like somehow can make it work, but it's just nope.
yeah. Let's just see a new
All
one. I
golden
think.
and shiny, and just sits there in my collection.
Yeah, I think Illidan is a card ripe for like a new version. Like let's not buff the existing one. Let's just get a new Illidan card at some point. Which it's going to be long, but it absolutely should just be Illidan the Betrayer. If we're naming the card, but yeah, let's just get a new version in there. Deathwing isn't a perfect example, certainly, because I agree with you, Dills. The original version of Deathwing is just a more impactful card than Deathwing Dragonlord. Yeah. But it is like the only thing we can point to where like this is a card based around a well-known character where it's the same damn character in both versions. Like Ragnaros and Ragnaros Lightlord, at least that's like revised fiction, alternate universe type of thing. Deathwing and Deathwing Dragonlord, that's just Deathwing, man. It just happens to be two different versions of the same character within a card game.
Sure. Yeah.
So
and the discard mechanic was part of their original plan for him in a way, and it works perfectly with Warlock. Saying.
I can dig. So very cool. And
Gul'dan and Illidan, by the way, have quite a history. So
That is true.
Hey,
Illidan like ate his skull or something.
yeah,
he carries it around.
His skull in his hand is like what? Yeah,
he carries it around like a lunchbox.
Yeah,
He keeps his snacks in there. Anyways, that's going to do it for this show. Thank you, Multizord, for the email. Keep your emails coming to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again to everyone supporting us at patreon.com/TAC. Also, thank you for the iTunes reviews, everyone. If you like the show and you want to help us get new listeners in the podcast sphere, drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Harry Raphael, that guy from The Place and Stuff, and Soma11, thank you all so much for your 5-star reviews. Check out more about this podcast and many more over at amove.tv. The entire back catalog can be found there or on youtube.com/amovetv. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Declan H. and Peter Williams. And we've got swag. You can get shirts over at shirts.amove.tv. We've got a Jobs Done and the Angry Chicken logo t-shirts available over there. We also have some sweet hand-etched glasses, mugs, etc. over at etched.amove.tv. Dude, did you guys see the taco glass for
The
fall?
taco glass is so freaking sweet.
Oh my god, dude. Oh. So one of our listeners, John, makes these things. Like he makes them by hand, and they're fantastic. You can't buy the taco glasses. They're one of a kind for the winners, and they're different every single time. But you can get same quality, awesome etched glassware over at etched.amove.tv. So go check that out. Hey, follow the show on Twitter at TAC Podcast. Tweet at us there. We check it very often. And catch us live every Tuesday night at 4 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. When that's all not going on, Dills, where can folks find your work?
Right now I'm going to pimp. Well, first let's start Twitter at Willie Dills, twitch.tv/WillieDillsSF. Check out the streams. We're going to be doing the push for Legend here over the next week. But also on Saturday, the Dills Hearthstone League Top 8 tournament will be happening. And that's going to start on about 12 o'clock, I believe, Central Time. And I am participating. We got Dano, who is like the league operator, essentially, and J. Billy B, top 4 at DreamHack last year. And they will be casting the event. And if I get eliminated, I will then join them to cast the rest of the event. But some big names in there. I'm pretty sure Big K and Clinch and some people who are like taco finalists and stuff and winners are in there. So it should be a lot of fun. So check it out. It'll be on my Twitch channel. And it'll probably be a nice like 4 or 5 hour long tournament because it's a double elimination top 8. So come check it out on Saturday at 12 Central Time. That is the 14th, I believe? The 14th.
I thought you were trying to remember you're on stream. Like, Dills, it's your stream. It's twitch.tv.
Yeah, twitch.tv/WillieDillsSF. Should be fun. And then season 3 will happen a few weeks after that. But essentially, it's just for like subs of my channel and stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, come check out the channel and find out more. You can ask me about it anytime.
Very cool.
A lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's season 2. It's been amazing. People have been really having a great time in it. I happen to be 8-0 this season, so I'm pretty excited about trying to become not the Patriots this year and instead be the Dolphins of 72 and actually to go all the way. But we shall see. We shall see.
I'm so sad about Miami. Jocelyn, how about you? Where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays, and you can find me right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV every Wednesday night for The Gamers In at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Short and succinct. I love it.
Yep.
You can find me on Twitter.
It's a long show today.
You can find me on Twitter.
It was.
At Garrett Art. Every podcast I do can be found at amove.tv. I will pimp my solo one, The Angry Nerd. I put out a new one this week. It was weird and emotional and also really fun because I talked about Carrie Fisher and then I also talked about my favorite games of 2016. The segue was horrendously horrible. So go listen to that 180 of a recording. So there is that. Thanks again to our sponsors, not Harry's. Getting my sponsors mixed up. HelloFresh. Too many ages. HelloFresh.com. Use the code TAC35 when you subscribe. You will get $35 off your first week of deliveries. And also .game domains. Go to get.game to get your .game domain today. Thank them for their support. We thank you all for listening. And until next time, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!